Good day, everyone. I'm very happy that you could join me. You could visit me. I don't know if you're anything like me, but these days I'm at home by myself mostly, and it gets awfully lonely. So I'm very happy that you all decided to visit today. You actually caught me at a rather good time. I'm just sitting at my writing desk, and I'm going over some letters from my family, and just reminiscing on the times when we really could be together. Right now, this is really the only way that we have to talk to one another. So I'm very happy that I have them and that I've kept them, because it's been a bit since I've received a new one. But, well, I suppose that some of you, we might not have had the chance to meet yet. So I suppose I should introduce myself to you all. My name is Miss Essie James. I'm very happy to meet you all. So if you don't know anything about me, we've not met yet, I'd be happy to tell you a little bit about myself. Let's see, where do I start? Well, first of all, I was born and raised in DuPont, Indiana. I have my father, my mother, and my brother. Now, unfortunately, my mother did pass away in 1859. I rather remember the date quite clearly. See, my whole life growing up, my brother was my best friend. We spent a great deal of our time together, but I always had this feeling like maybe I didn't want to be in DuPont forever. I always felt like I needed to get out and to go see things that I hadn't seen before and meet people I hadn't met before. So when I was of age, I decided that I wanted to go to college. So I actually moved to Bloomington, Illinois, and I actually attended a college, Illinois State Normal University, and I loved it there. I love learning. Anything new that I can hold on to, I try to. But like I said, when my mother got ill, she had this fever. And my brother, I remember he wrote to me, and he asked me to come home to see her, to visit her. So I came home with my family, and I took care of her until the day that she passed. And then it was me and my brother and my father. And I decided that I needed to stay home, and I needed to help take care of them. So that's really where I ended up now. And of course, being that I got an education and that I went to college, I was able to then become the school teacher for DuPont. And it's not a job that I had anticipated, but I love it nonetheless. I get to spend time with the children of the town, teach them anything I can, spend time with them. And during these hard times, I find it's a bit of a good distraction to be able to go into my schoolhouse with my children and just teach them whatever I can. But that being said, I am the only person at home right now. See, my brother and my father both decided to join the Union Army. Now, that sounds quite frightening, I know, but, well, I'm proud of them for it. I grew up thinking that all people are created equally, and so when my father and my family, my brother, decided to join the war, I felt rather proud of them. Oh, look, I see some of you are joining. You've got questions. So, someone asked what my letter says. I won't share all the details, of course. Some of it's rather personal. But this one here is from my brother, Herbie. He joined the Union a little bit later than my father did. And the most recent letter I got from him, he was in Vicksburg. I don't know if you know much about that, but it seems like they're in a bit of trouble there. And so this letter is just him talking all about how they were there. He's thanking me, too. I send him and my father some things, socks, maybe some candy, anything like that. And so he was thanking me. He actually mentioned that he had to fight off some of the fellow men that he was fighting with, that they wanted some of the candy, too. So he was thanking me for that. Actually, as you can see, Herbie's letters are always rather short. It's just like Herbie. He never likes to sit down and spend too much time doing one thing. So I'm not surprised. But he did mention here that he couldn't stand to not write to me and let me know that he was doing okay. He does always do a good job to make me a little bit more at ease. Let's see. Someone asked, do I have family fighting in the war? Yes, I do. So my brother, Herbie, and my father. So let's see. My father joined first, I believe in 1861. He's part of the 7th Indiana Infantry. And so he left in April of 61, if I'm not mistaken. And so he's fighting, and then, of course, Herbie is fighting as well. And Herbie left a little bit later. At first, he decided he wanted to stay home and help me take care of things around home while Father was gone and since we lost Mother. But, things started to last a little bit longer than we had anticipated. And so I think that he just couldn't stand being at home, and he felt like he wasn't doing enough. So then he decided to enlist as well. So he's in the 59th Indiana Infantry, and I believe he left in February. Yes, February in 1862. So, yeah. Let's see. What do I like to teach my students? I love to teach them, well, my personal favorite, I love reading and writing and literature. So I love to teach my students anything like that. But, of course, just like any person, you have different preferences. And so not all my students care for that. So sometimes it's a little hard to capture their attention. But I will say, since the war started, they are starting to realize the importance of reading and writing. Most of them have folks who are left, and they've gone to help fight for the war as well, or help fight in the war. So they have to write letters just like we do to keep in touch with the folks that they love. So I think that they've started to appreciate a little bit more how hard I was on them with their reading and writing. That way they can really keep in touch with their loved ones. Let's see, what else do we have? Are you the only one in your family that has gone to college? Yes, I am. In fact, I'm one of the only folks around town who I know has left and gone to college. Most folks in DuPont, or at least around DuPont, they're farmers, perhaps, or they, like Mr. Nichols, has the dry goods store, things like that. They prefer that sort of business. So, yes, I am the only one in my family. Someone asked, you mentioned literature. What is your favorite book to teach? Well, I don't necessarily go through books with them. It's more of getting them to make sure that they can read and write sentences and everything like that. But as my students get a little bit older, then they're able to really comprehend better things. So I love, well, this might seem a little scandalous, but I do love Frankenstein. I think it's a good book, and it's got good moral lessons in it. So I love to give my older students that book by Mary Shelley so that they can read it. Someone asked, where did I go to college? So in case you all missed that, I moved to Bloomington, Illinois, and I went to Illinois State Normal University. And then, when school's out of session, do any of your students send you letters as well? No, not particularly. I do have a few students who, of course, no one has their favorite students. But I do have students who like to maybe visit me or see me in town a little bit more than some of the others. So even if they don't write me, they do come to visit. In fact, I've got one student, Ruth. She's just a delight. She comes to me and visits me whenever she gets the chance. And she's one of those students who really likes taking my word for books and things. So she takes my recommendations and reads what I like to give her. Does everyone in your family think that slavery is wrong? Yes, they do. I am a God-fearing woman, and I'm that way because my family raised me that way. And so, fortunately for me, all the folks around me, and my family anyway, they believe that slavery is wrong. Now, there are some folks in town who don't really believe that, or they just maybe don't pay as close attention to it as I do. Or as others do, they just rather not think about it. But I am lucky enough to where I'm in a family that shares my opinions on that. Now, if you ask me, I don't want to get too political, because I know that it's rather unladylike to be involved in politics and things. But when it comes to the matter of slavery, I don't think it's rather politic. I think that it's a moral problem that we have. Now, like I said, I'm a God-fearing lady, and I believe that God loves us all. And, well, if one person is good enough for the creator of us all to love and to give his time and care for, then, well, I certainly am no different. They certainly deserve my respect and care just as much as the next person. So, and my family's like that too, thankfully. Let's see. How do you feel about the war between... Oh, it went away. Let me see. Says, how do you feel about the war between states? Do you feel it is right? I do believe it's right. I believe it's a good cause to fight for. Do I believe that the South had the right to secede? Absolutely not. If you ask me, they're acting like petulant little children. Believe me, I know a thing or two about petulant little children, being a school teacher in town. it seems to me like they were afraid that they weren't going to get what they wanted anymore, and so they decided to throw a little bit of a fit about it. And now people are dying because of it. People are, they're losing their peace of mind, even if they're not in the war personally. Their homes are being uprooted. Even the Southerners who decided to start this war, they're being negatively impacted by this all over a matter that I believe should have been easily settled. I don't think that there's any reason that that folks should be enslaved, no matter the skin color. Let's see, I see a few more that I've missed here. I'm just talking and talking. I told you all I'm lonely, so I like having all the company here. How do I feel about slaves settling in Indiana? Is it okay? And then they clarified. They said the runaway slaves. Now, I know for a little while it was a legal obligation that the northern states had, were supposed to have, to return runaway slaves to the South. I never agreed with that whatsoever. Seemed like, to me, we were almost pacifying the South. We say something's not right, and then we almost help them keep doing that thing. So, by all means, I want those runaway slaves to come here and to be safe. In fact, there's a runaway slave named Albert who lives here in DuPont with the Porters. He's a lovely person, and he helps the Porters as best as he can with any work that they have, and they really helped him get on his feet. So absolutely, I believe if they can't come here, where on earth are they supposed to go? They're not safe down south. So of course I think that they have a right to be here in the north. Let's see. What is a routine day in the life of a school teacher in the 1860s? Well, that depends on the day. Right now, we are not in school season, so mostly I'm staying home and I'm tending to the home, which is rather lucky because I'm the only person here to tend to the home. So it is rather nice that I have a job to where I have some time to be at home. But on these days, I do like to prepare for my lessons. I like to make sure that I am staying up to date with any bits of new information, literature, like I said, mathematics, anything like that. I like to stay up to date. But when I am in the schoolhouse with my students, usually they come in rather early in the morning. I have them sit down. I make sure that they're all there. In fact, lately, that's been rather easy because we don't have very many students these days. Unfortunately, a great deal of younger ones need to stay home and to help at home since maybe their fathers or their brothers or the men of the households are going away to fight. So, unfortunately, not as many children are able to come to school. But when they are, I like to make sure they're there. I have them toe the line. I make sure that they can all get up in front of me. They can answer any questions that I have. I'll test them on things verbally to make sure that they're staying up to date with all of their lessons and things like that. And then, of course, I do have a board in my schoolhouse that I can write on. And oftentimes what I do is I have them come up and I have them work out problems to where I can make sure that they really know what they're doing. So they're rather short days. And in fact, this school season's rather short too. This past year, my school, it only ran from the very end of September until April. So we're already finished now. So it's rather easy. Let's see what else. Have you done anything to aid the soldiers? Have you joined a sewing group? So Mrs. Porter has a big hand in helping the soldiers. She's part of the Ladies' Aid, or the Soldiers' Aid Society. And so I personally have not joined as a permanent member, but I certainly do help. Sometimes they need help wrapping bandages and things like that. I always knit a pair of socks and things for my own family. Sometimes I send them a few. I know my brother Herbie, once he said that he took one of his pairs and he gave them to someone else who very badly needed them, especially in a cold winter. But mostly, to be honest, I make sure that my own family is tended to and taken care of first and foremost. But I do lend a hand in the Soldiers' Aid Society whenever I get the chance to. I see a few more. Oh, someone said, hello. Hello there. Do I have a sweetheart? I do not. Just like any young girl, I had always dreamed of getting married and having a family of my own and spending that time looking after them and being at home. But right now, during the war, I just can't seem to really worry about that sort of thing. My heart's awfully heavy with worrying about the folks I already have fighting away at the war. And so I just feel it would be rather selfish of me to be thinking about that sort of thing right now. Now, I don't mean to offend anyone. I know that some folks are happily in love and spending time and they have sweethearts right now, but that's just not for me. And ever since I became a teacher, I've really rather realized that I love doing that. And if I were to get married, I would then go home. I would stay at home, and I would not be a teacher anymore. So, of course, I still want that, but I'm in no rush, not in these times, and of course, because also I enjoy my job, and I'm perfectly happy taking care of my students for the moment, instead of my own children. What else? What do you think should happen to all those Confederate soldiers, leaders, and generals if the Union should win the war? That's a very good question. I've never thought of anything like that. I do believe that some folks are joining maybe because they have to, or because they have their own personal reasons. And I don't think that they all should be punished. But I do think that certain important individuals, maybe certain important individuals who are leading the Confederacy, should maybe be in a little bit of trouble if they should lose. God willing, if they should lose, because they're leading all this trouble. They're leading all this fight. And I did say that I think this war is worth fighting and that it's a worthy cause, but my loved ones are risking their lives to do this. And many other folks that I know have lost folks who have died in war, or just their lives have been uprooted because of it. And so I do think that there should be some sort of punishment to those folks for causing all of this and for making our country bleed the way that it has been. Let's see, I think I see a few more. If you could say one thing to yourself as a child, what would it be? Same question to yourself in, let's say, 10 to 15 years. If I could say one thing to myself as a child, I would say to enjoy being a child, because I think that when you're younger, you don't do that. You wish for times when you're all grown up and you can go be on your own or have your own family, anything like that. And so I would say just enjoy that time because it's very valuable. Same question, but to yourself, let's say 10 to 15 years. What would I tell myself? Does that mean what would I tell myself now, today, if I was living in 10 to 15 years? Or what would I tell myself when I'm in 10 to 15 years? I'm just going to guess. Let's see. So let's say I'm in the future 10 to 15 years from now, and I'm looking back, and I'm talking to myself right now. I would tell myself, well, you're asking for a lot of insight from me. I would tell myself to keep doing my best, and that it's okay if some days it feels like you haven't done your best. Yeah, we'll say that. We'll keep going. Do I have siblings? So in case you missed that, I do have one brother. He's 2 years younger than me. His name's Herbert, but we all call him Herbie. And he is a rather funny young man. I miss him a lot. He was always the jokester. He was always the one that was making us laugh at home. And I remember when we were growing up, I love plays and things like that. Like I said, I love literature as well. So I would make him put on plays with me. And no matter the play, no matter how serious it was or whatever content we were covering, he would somehow turn it into some sort of joke or make it funny, which really frustrated me when I was younger. But now looking back, I think it's rather funny. I miss him a great deal. Let's see. How do you feel about the soldiers taking over your schoolhouse? I don't mind at all. If you all don't know what she's talking about, we had some Southern soldiers come through our town, Confederate raiders, and they stole from us and destroyed things, really just wanted to cause trouble for us and for the Union. They didn't hurt anyone, thankfully. However, they did leave a mess behind. And so the Union came in after the Confederates to try to track them down and to chase them. And some of the Union has taken over some parts of the town just to sort of make it their own while they're here, so they can get things done. So I don't mind that they took over my school. I wish that they would knock some of the mud and dirt off of their boots before they walked into the school, but can't help that much. That's just men, isn't it? My father and my brother did the same thing at our home, so I can't say that I'm surprised. What else? Someone said, your brother is fighting. Where is he? So, he's actually in Vicksburg right now. As far as I know, he's been there since around May, because that is the last letter I had received from him. He said he was there in May. In fact, my father and I were a little bit worried at the moment. We've not heard from Herbie in a while. The last letter I received from him was in May, so I'm not entirely sure if he had moved or if something has changed, but the last time I heard, he's in Vicksburg, and he did tell me he was safe, of course, thankfully. What else? Do you think Lincoln deserves to win the next election? Absolutely. Without a doubt in my mind, I believe that Abraham Lincoln should continue to be our president. The president of the United States is one of the most important jobs in the world, and I am hard-pressed to think of another man who could do such a hard job of keeping the country together while also trying to run it. It's unimaginable, and I believe that Abraham Lincoln is a good man, and I believe that, just like myself and my family, I think that he's a God-fearing man. And when you have someone like that, you can trust that they're going to make the right decisions. And he also just signed the Emancipation Proclamation earlier this year in January. So he has basically, that's a way of basically publicly saying, without a doubt, this war is over slavery, and that he believes this matter should be settled and that those slaves should be freed. And anyone who believes that is all right by me. So yes, I do think that he should be president. Someone asked if I was close to my mother. Like I said, she did pass away in 1859, but we were very close. We were a very close family in general before all of this happened, and we were all separated. Now we're all in different spots. But yes, we were extremely close. I came home to help take care of her when she was sick. Someone asked me, you mentioned performing plays as a child. Have you ever seen a stage play? I haven't, not in person. I like to read about them when they're written, and when someone goes and sees them and maybe writes about them in the papers. I hear that the Booth family are very good actors. Edwin Booth, in particular, I hear that he's a very good actor. I think he might have a brother who also acts, but I don't even remember his name. I don't think he's as good as Edwin, from what I hear. Do you think women should have the right to vote? Well, like I said, I don't want to be too political, because I know folks consider it rather unladylike. And I don't want to say anything that offends anyone. But I'll just say this. I am more educated than most of the men I know in town. And I'll leave it at that. Are you scared that something is going to happen to your brother? Absolutely. Every day of my life I wake up and I'm frightened that something's going to happen to my brother. They are in very dangerous situations. And who knows what could happen to them. So yes, I'm very frightened for my brother and for my father, but I think that it's worth it. Your hair flowers are very pretty. Did you make them yourself? I did. Can you see them? Thank you. Yes, I did. All you really have to do, I get some ribbons, and I like to connect them, tie them in with the ribbon, and then I just like to weave the ribbon into my braids. So, yes. And I think I missed a few. Thank you all so much for visiting with me. Like I said, I really enjoy it. I missed it. Oh, someone asked a long time ago, I'm sorry I missed this, how many students do I have? So on a normal day, I usually have more, or by normal, I mean before the war started. I think the most I've ever had is around 18 or so. But like I said, with the war going on, I don't have as many children in my classrooms because they're away at home, having to help with things around home. So this past year, I only had 11, I believe, and then I believe one student actually had to leave in about after the first month of classes because he had to go help his mother at home as well. So it has sort of been dwindling, but that's how many I had this past year. Sorry, I'm making sure that I'm not missing any of your questions. They're good ones. Did the Confederates take any of your belongings? Not personally, thankfully. I suppose because I'm not necessarily in the heart of DuPont that I missed some of it. I do hear that they came through people's homes and they were forcing women to cook for them. So I believe it was anything really that they had in their homes, they were making them cook. And then I know that they took a great deal from Mayfield and Nichols dry goods store as well. I heard they made a mess of that. In fact, I actually promised Mr. Nichols that I would come by and I would help him clean some things up a little bit later. So after I'm done visiting with you folks, I'm probably actually going to help him do that as well. Let's see, I see some more. Have I considered becoming an Army nurse? I not seriously considered. I feel as though I have found my calling here as a teacher. After all, these young folks are the adults of the future, right, of tomorrow. So I think that it's very important to help them, help shape their minds, help make sure that they're well equipped for whatever comes their way. But I do have a great deal of respect for those women who become nurses. I hear that it's difficult work. I'm not squeamish in any way, and I'm even fascinated with a lot of what they do. I've read up on it, and I've talked to women who are nurses, and they've told me about what the surgeons do, and I think that's very interesting. But I don't think that it's really for me. I think I'm a little too soft-hearted for that work. I don't know if I could really get into that state of mind to where I'm able to look at a person objectively and just sort of work at their wounds. I think I would always just be upset that person was hurt. I would never get any work done. When the war ends, would you consider going to the South to teach the free slaves? I would, absolutely. I think that is going to be something very, very important. These folks who are enslaved, they have no education whatsoever. I mean, they don't even have basic human rights, so of course they're not being taught how to even do anything like read and write. So I think that's going to be very important, and I know that some folks, well, I'm going to tell you all because I feel rather comfortable with you now, but I am an abolitionist, and I know that word is sort of like a bad word right now because people think that just being an abolitionist is so I don't want to say crazy, but that's how people are acting, like we're a bit touched in the head for being abolitionists. So that being that way, I think that these folks have a lot of growing to do. And so because I'm this way and I talk about these beliefs, some people around town like to argue with me. And they like to bring up arguments like, where are we going to put the slaves when they're free? How are we going to help them? What are they supposed to do? And I do think that they're already well equipped to do work and to be paid for it right now. Of course they are. They're taking care of the people down south as we speak. They're out in their fields doing their work, and they're in their homes cooking their food. So I of course believe that slaves are capable of doing something for a living. But if we want them to rise higher, which I do, I don't want them to always just be stuck doing that sort of work. I want them to have a choice. I want them to be able to provide for themselves in the ways that they want to. And to be able to do that, they're going to need an education and to be able to read and write and do mathematics and anything like that. So I could very well go down south and teach them. I fear that it would be very dangerous for a person like me to do that, but I reckon that if my father and my brother are able to go fight in the war and put themselves, in danger like that, then I certainly could do it as well. I have just as much courage as them when it comes to that. Let's see, what else? You are a wonderful, forward-looking young woman. Well, thank you very much. Some folks think I'm touched in the head, but we don't listen to those folks, right? What do you think the future is going to look like? I have no idea. Not one bit. I think that for the foreseeable future, we are going to have very hard times. The war, of course, is still going on. And so, of course, those obvious hard times are ahead of us. But I do also fear that no matter how the war turns out, we are going to see some ugly years as well. I think that if, God willing, the Union wins, then we have to repair an entire country. We have to go in and we have to help the bleeding South, the South that we injured in the first place, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And God forbid if the South should win, then we have to, I suppose, figure out an entirely new way to live in a different sort of country, in a different sort of America. And that is that's far more frightening to me. And imagine what happens to those poor enslaved folks. They have no one to speak for them down there if the South is able to secede. The danger that they would be in, it makes me sick to my stomach to even think about. Let's see. Have you had problems with people in town about your abolitionist feelings? Yes, I have. I made the mistake of writing to my father one time and sort of airing some of my grievances about it, and now he's worried about me every day. So I don't do that anymore. I don't talk about it too much in my letters, but I have found lately, I've not always been like this, but lately I find that I just can't stay quiet on this topic. It means too much to me. And so, of course, that means that invites confrontation, and that invites people to, have a bone to pick with my beliefs and the way I think and the things I say, but that is worth it to me, right? If it's something that matters to you, and it's something that you value and you think is important enough, then of course you're going to accept that. And so that's what I do. Now, not all the residents of DuPont are like that. We do live in Indiana, after all, and we are a union state, and most folks do support the union for one reason or another. But there are just a few who are maybe peace Democrats, maybe they're copperheads, whatever you want to call them, they just want the South to be left alone, which is absurd to me. I can't fathom just not caring about this. It's like they want it to end because it would be convenient for them. And they just disregard all the other people who would suffer if that were to happen, if the war was just to end, or if we were just to forget about the issue of slavery and let it continue to happen. I can't fathom it. I really can't. I can't imagine being so selfless or selfish about something like that. Someone asked, how much money do I make as a teacher? So if we were to break it down, it would be I would get paid about $1 a day to work in the months that I'm a teacher. So for about 3 months that I'm teaching, I would be paid about $1 a day is how it's broken up. Now, that's because I'm a woman. If I was a male teacher, I would be paid $1.38 to do the same work. What do you think of the Union soldiers camped in your town? I don't mind them. They're friendly enough. They are dirty. And it's very clear that they have been living their lives without civilities, you could say. They've not had women in their lives for a while, so there's not really been anyone to make sure that they are cleaned and kept well and everything like that. And it shows sometimes. I think they've forgotten some of their manners, but for the most part, they're completely friendly men, and they're doing great work as Union soldiers. They're in our town right now, and they're perfectly safe for now, as far as we know. But I know that they could be entering into danger at any time. And so I hope that God is with them, and I think that they deserve all of our help and our praise, anything that we can give them. Let's see. Is there anything that Lincoln is doing that is unjust? That's a good question. Like I said, I love Abraham Lincoln. And I find it very hard to be hard on him, because I can't imagine what it must be like, this stress that he must be under in these situations. I know that there are some folks that are angry because he suspended habeas corpus, but this is a war. And we're fighting our own people right now. And there has to be a degree of control, I believe. I think, is it ideal? No, certainly not. Certainly not. Of course we want free press, and we want people to be able to speak their mind and to do all of that, but how are we supposed to end all of this bleeding and suffering if we're also fighting the people at home? It's a lot. And so are some of the things he's done a little bit questionable? Sure. I'm not completely naive, but I do think that there is just there's a degree that you have to just go at with understanding. He's got the hardest job in the world right now. And if that's what he thinks he has to do, then let's do it. I stand behind him. Let's see. How long does it take you to sew your dress? So I was lucky enough. I actually purchased this one. I didn't sew it. My mother was more of the woman who could really sew our dresses and things. So I didn't. If I did work on this, I have no idea how long it would take me. It would take me far longer than the average woman. I could say that. I don't have the eye for little details like others do, and so I think I would miss some things, and it would either take me a very long time or it would be rather sloppy. But I am lucky enough to where I purchased this one, and it's one of the, I have 2 dresses of mine, and so this one is rather a more day-to-day dress that I can just wear when I'm doing housework at home, or if I'm at the schoolhouse and I'm cleaning or I'm teaching. This is the one I really gravitate to, and you can tell it's got a little bit of a sun bleaching to it. Let's see. Someone said, you are my favorite resident in your town. Thank you very much. I hear it might be your birthday. Happy birthday. Let's see. Sorry, I saw a few and then I lost them. Oh, here we are. When you aren't teaching, what are some of your favorite things to do to keep yourself busy? So, like I said, I love to read. So I do a great deal of reading, and I like to keep up with that. In a way that I've actually worked out to keep that going is I like to help Mr. Nichols at Mayfield & Nichols Dry Goods Store. And so I will just pop in there and I will help do some cleaning or some arranging or really whatever he asks of me. And in return, he trades me, he lets me read some of his books and things. So that's what I've been doing lately. And then, of course, just preparing and doing work like that. Lately, since the war started, I feel like I'm doing nothing but whatever I can to help the war effort, which usually means making things or getting things prepared to send to my father and my brother as well. Let's see. Someone said, lives are being lost on both sides. Obviously, you support the Union. When the war is over, do you think the South should memorialize their dead soldiers? How would you feel if a Confederate memorial was proposed to be built near your hometown to remember the raiders that lost their lives? That's a very good question, and it's difficult to answer because I do view these people as rebels. And I think that what they're standing for or fighting for is wrong, morally wrong. And it's technically now illegal as well, since Abraham Lincoln said that that it's illegal to have slavery now. But I do try to think of them as people as well, because like I said, I have loved ones who are fighting in the war, and I don't even dare speak this aloud, but if something happened to them, I would hope that they would be treated with respect and they were buried respectfully, but I would want them to be home to do that. And I certainly don't expect anyone to make a grand memorial for them. And so I don't know why people would do that for the rebels as well, and I wouldn't want it near my own home. I wouldn't want to be constantly reminded of the men who potentially had a hand in harming my loved ones or coming through my town and raiding through it. And also, if we won the war, what would be the point? Are we celebrating the losers? I don't understand. If a Democrat was president and in control of the war effort, would you support him? Good question. No, I don't believe I would. I am not so much involved in politics, like I said. It's not very ladylike. I have such a standing in this war because of the matter of slavery. So I suppose if he was trying to end slavery, or he was doing something that I thought was morally right, perhaps I could support him. I should never say never, I don't know. But if he was a Democrat and he was saying, let's let the South secede, and he was letting them keep their slaves, then I would have an issue with him. And unfortunately, that is the perspective of the Democrats right now. It seems as the peace Democrats that just want to leave the war be and let it all finish without actually solving anything. Let's see. Who do you live with? I live on my own right now. So I live in my family home. So when the war's not going on, it's me, my brother, and my father. My brother is not married yet either. But since they are gone, it is just me alone at home and trying to my best to take care of everything. I am lucky because any money that my father and my brother make, they do send most of it here to help me tend to things around home. I reckon that they probably keep a bit for themselves, but for the most part they send it to me, and then that way I can help take care of them and send them things that they need, and then I can also take care of the home as well. Someone said, do you have a favorite song? Can you sing it for us? No, that would be terribly cruel. I would not subject you to that ruckus. Good try, though. Let's see. Do you have a favorite book? Any recommendations? I love Jane Austen, and I know people think that she's just a romantic and she's boring and all of that, but I think she is funny. I think her wit was sharp, and I enjoy reading her very much. So I love her. I always recommend her, but if people are into that, like I said, I love Frankenstein as well. This one here is Wuthering Heights by Bronte. Love that one as well. Is reading your favorite pastime? Yes, it is. I love it. I think it's probably because, like I said much earlier when we began our conversation, I always dreamed and imagined that I would leave DuPont, Indiana, and I imagined that I would go somewhere else and get to see new things and meet new people. And since fate has brought me home again, I think that reading is sort of my way of seeing new places and meeting new people and having adventures. I think that is the magic of storytelling and reading and even writing and creating stories. So I love it, yes. What is your favorite subject to teach at school? So literature, of course. I teach all of the basics that anyone else would teach the students, especially when they're younger. You know, mathematics, history, reading, writing, things like that. But if I have really advanced students who are older and who I can trust, can really absorb what I'm teaching about, I also love talking about astronomy, which I think is very interesting. So that's always really fun, but I don't always have students who are really up to that level to learn that. What is your favorite? Oh, that's the one I already read. We've got one underneath. Do I farm? I do not. I don't think I would be very good at that either. If you all are catching the theme here, I think that I'm well suited for teaching. Not much else. Not really, anyway. I suppose I could if I really had to. I know women around town who are having to farm, basically keep their family farms running while their husband's away. In fact, I know Miss Nancy Lewis. She is single-handedly taking care of her farm, basically, and she has a child while her husband is away in the Union, which is incredible to me. What a strong woman. So I suppose I could if I really had to. I think we can do anything if we really, really, set our minds to it, and we have this sort of grim determination. I think we could. So perhaps I could, but I don't know, seeing Nancy struggle the way she does, I'm very fortunate that I don't actually have to actively do that. But I do try to help her. She cannot read and write, actually. So anytime I get the chance, I do try to help her get through her letters and write her letters for her to send to her husband. That way that they can keep in touch. I do feel rather bad for them because, well, some of those things can be very personal. When you're talking to your family and they're in such hard times, you miss them. It's been years since she's seen her husband. I feel bad that I have to sort of read through that personal information, but if I didn't, then she wouldn't have a way to speak to him. So I'm happy to help her in that way. Is your school integrated? Should former slaves be taught alongside northern children? My school is not integrated. In fact, we have no former slaves or anything like that in our town right now who own their own homes and have children who send them to school. I do know that they have some schooling, I believe, in other towns where they can go, but it's just African American children in those schools. There's no white folks there with them. Do I think that it's right if they were to all go to school together? I think yes. I think that I would be a hypocrite if I said that I believe they're equal and that they should be free, but then I didn't give them the same rights as myself or as other white folks. That's not freedom. When you're deciding where folks can be and where they can exist, that's not freedom, and that's not all right. So I do believe that they should be able to go to school with white folks. Do I think that will happen? No, not for a very long time, at least. Like I said, I'm not naive. I'm a bit of an idealist, but I do know that would stir a lot of trouble, and I know that some of my current students' parents would be very angry with me if I were to let black children into my school, and unfortunately that's just the way it is. Sometimes you have to pick your poison. Let's see. What is your favorite animal? I never really thought about it, I suppose. I don't have any animals of my own, no farm animals or anything like that. I do love, I suppose, cows more than anything. They seem to be very sweet. Like I said, I don't have any of my own, but probably cows, I bet. Someone asked, would I ever quit being a teacher? Yes, I would. Like I said earlier, I would need to stop teaching if I were to be married, and I would stay at home and I'd take care of my family there. So yeah, yes, I would, for certain reasons. I wouldn't just leave just because I got tired of it, though. Like I said, I love it, and I love being around the children, especially in times like this. Children have a way of just brightening everything, and sort of, as adults, we take ourselves very, very seriously. And don't you all find that a bit exhausting at times? And so sometimes it's very nice to be around children who just are still playful, and they're not afraid to be wrong. So they are able to ask questions or engage in conversations that we don't necessarily have as adults because we're just afraid to look, misinformed or to sound foolish or anything like that. So I do love being around them. So I would never leave just to leave or to go pursue something else. But I would leave if it came down to, having to take care of my own family. Absolutely. Do I at least keep chickens? We do have a few running around. To be honest, I don't pay them much mind, though. Don't tell my family. What is my favorite food? That's a good question. Food is one of my favorite subjects. Let's see. I know my favorite drink is coffee. I have coffee right now. It's afternoon and I'm drinking my coffee. I would say some sort of pudding would probably be my favorite. But I know some folks don't like vegetables. I love vegetables. I can't get enough of them. So I love Brussels sprouts as well. I know that's strange, but I love them. Let's see. Do you have a bow? No, like I said earlier, during the war, it seems unimportant to me right now. It seems like I have better things to spend my energy on. And I'm worried enough as it is with having my father and my brother in the Union. And if I were to have a beau, I would then have to either be worried about them being in the Union or potentially having to be in the Union. And that's an extra headache I'm not looking for at the moment. Since you like literature, do you ever see yourself writing your own book? That is a good question. I feel like, don't we all feel like we have something very important to say? But we don't all really have something important to say. Do you know what I mean? We all think that we're the first people to think of something and think of an idea. And so I think I would always struggle with that fear that I think I have this great idea to write about and this wonderful story, but I don't know if I ever would, or if I would have anything new to say, or if I would have a new way to say an old thing. I don't know. I've mentioned Frankenstein a lot in this, and I really look up to Mary Shelley. I think she was just such an interesting woman, and this story that she came up with, I don't know how in the world she would come up with something so grim and disturbing. That fascinates me. But then that also frightens me, because, well, could you imagine writing a book like that, and then the whole world judging you and thinking that you were some sort of wild person who dreams of creating a human being out of severed pieces of other human beings? That's terrifying. So, perhaps I would. I think it would be rather fun, but I'm not sure if it would be good. Let's see. I saw something else pop up, but I think that it's not finished. Since you like gothic horror, what is all it says? I think maybe we should give her some time. Oh, what do I think of Poe? I think he's fascinating too. Like I said, I just think it's very fascinating to think of these people who can come up with such grim stories. You don't know if you should be in awe of them. Sometimes you imagine that they come up with these. Of course, Mary Shelley had never witnessed anything like Frankenstein in her life, but she came up with it all and imagined it all. It's rather interesting to think that a person can do that. But with Poe, I wonder if maybe he's not getting that sort of grim story ideas because he's maybe a bit of a grim man as well. So maybe someone should go check, make sure he's all right. Is he? Anyway, so yes, pardon me. Would be very interesting. I love to talk about these things, and certainly maybe sometime I would think about writing a story. What is the youngest child you have in your school? Oh, let me think. I believe Ruth is the oldest right now, Miss Ruthie. I do have a student, James, and I believe he is... Oh, how old is James? I think about 8 or 9. And then, of course, all my students, no matter their age, they're all in the schoolhouse together with me. And sometimes they're going at different levels of learning, but sometimes age doesn't matter at all. Sometimes an older child could be at the same level as a younger child. It really depends on the person. But by the time they have gone to school for about 5 years, no matter their age, I do expect them to be at a certain level, to where if they wanted to, they would be able to leave school and they could go to college. I feel like after getting to their 5th year of school, they should be able to do that, to really hold their own. Are any of my students away in war right now? No, thankfully, none of them are. Some of them are awfully close to the age. Of course, you have to be 18 to enlist in the Union Army. And I have heard, unfortunately, that some young men are just a bit overzealous and they decide that they want to fight in the Union even though they're not of age, which is unfortunate because I wouldn't wish seeing that sort of thing on anyone, on a grown man, much less a child. And I do even sometimes consider 18-year-olds children, right? At least sometimes in their mindsets they are. So no, I don't personally, but I do have a few young men who if the war, hopefully not, but if the war is still going on and they're of age, I believe that they would probably go. How do you feel about Victor Hugo? I think the man talks and talks and talks and talks and writes and writes and writes for far too long. Just get to the point, Hugo, please. Goodness gracious. I try. I really do try to sit down and get through his stories, but who has time for a sentence that is an entire page long? Or talking about a cathedral for 100 pages straight. I'm sorry, Hugo. You're a brilliant man, but whew. How do you punish your students if they misbehave? So, if I wanted to, I could paddle them if they don't misbehave. Fortunately for me, though, I still I have children pretty consecutively through their entire schooling careers, and by a certain point, the children pretty much know what's expected of them and how I like to run my schoolhouse, and so I've got it pretty neat right now to where they all fall in line remotely well. And also, these are hard times. I'm a grown woman, and these times are confusing, and they're difficult for me to grasp some days. And so if I have a child who's misbehaving in my school right now, I try to remember that they're only children, and they're going through this war and all this trouble. And so if I myself am having a hard time processing everything, of course they are. Of course they are. And so if they were to act up, I do, especially right now, all the time, but especially right now, I do try to understand where they're coming from. A child never misbehaves just for no reason. There's almost always a reason behind it, and it's usually something is bothering them. Maybe something's going on at home. Right now, a lot of it is they're upset because they're worried about their family, whatever the case may be. So I try my very best not to, need to paddle them or anything. You talk to them like people, like you would talk to an adult, and you figure things out. You don't have to necessarily go to such extreme measures. Is church going on during this war? Absolutely. I suppose that might be a way for people to be able to, like I said, process what's happening and to find comfort in these hard times. I can't imagine having to go through all this without being able to come together and maybe pray about it. Have you heard the stories about women dressing as men and fighting in the war? I have heard those stories. I think that they might be tall tales. I suppose that if any woman was truly really good at that, we wouldn't know they were doing that. And so I have heard some tales of maybe women being caught, and I think that you're supposed to be arrested for that, or you're supposed to get in trouble for that. But they're not doing that. And so when a woman's caught, I think that I've heard that, can you believe they just go back and do it again? Why would you want to do that? I would not want to join the war. If women are doing that, you seem very courageous, but I think that your talents might be better suited elsewhere. But, who knows? How has your town changed since your childhood? It's gotten a little bit bigger. I do remember it was a little bit smaller. Fewer businesses and things like that. But for the most part, DuPont is one of those places that doesn't change much. Pretty much stays the same through it's timeless. Of course, except now because we did have a raid come through yesterday. So of course things look different now, but for the most part, DuPont's a very up and running sort of town. We have a train that runs through DuPont. It goes from Madison, Indiana to Indianapolis, Indiana, and so we have a great deal of people and supplies and things coming in and out. So it seems like we're going to just hopefully continue to grow and just get more people and more businesses that come through. Someone said I have to go. It's been very nice talking. Looks like we're trying to connect. Oh, there we are. Sorry about that. Lost you all for a little while. Let's see. I may have missed it, but what are your living arrangements being an adult single woman? Do you have your own house or do you board with another family? Good question. I did mention this earlier, so I'll just briefly discuss it so the folks who've been watching don't have to hear me talk about it too much. But I do live at my family home right now. My father and my brother are both away at the war, so it's really up to me to tend things and to look after things. But it is just me since my mother passed in 59. So it's been difficult, but it's my family home and I don't want to abandon it. And of course someone has to stay back and, look after it. So I see that as doing my part for this as well. So I don't mind. And like I said, I do hear word from my father and my brother quite often, well, as often as they can manage. And they often write to me and check in on things. If I have a question about anything or if I need help, they try to help. I try not to bother them, to be frank with you, but I do ask. And then, like I said, my father and my brother both send their money that they make as soldiers back home to me, to where I can kind of tend to those things in their absence, which is nice. So I just saw a question pop up that says, how are you affording to be alone? That is how. They mostly, their costs help run the home, and then of course I do have my own little bit of income that I make as a teacher as well. If I were to live somewhere else, where would I live? That's a good question. It's hard to imagine any place in the United States as a happy place right now, unfortunately. It seems like we're all going through hardships, but I would say I would probably go further out east, somewhere by the water, perhaps, but not a place where it gets incredibly hot all the time. I don't like being hot. Really, I can't imagine being anywhere anymore. Like I said, I always had imagined that I would go and I would, move and be everywhere, but now I feel rather comfortable here. Do you know where your father and brother are fighting or have fought? Yes, they write to me, and they do tell me about some of the battles. They don't ever tell me actually in great detail anything about them. I think that they're afraid that they're going to worry me. But let's see, my father's infantry regiment, he's gone in some pretty big places. I believe the first battle, the one that really is tickling my memory, is Greenbrier. I think that's how you pronounce it. He was in Antietam, Battle of Winchester. Let's see, what else? Second Battle Bull Run. He was in Gettysburg. I can't believe I haven't mentioned this to you all. Of course, one of the letters I had just received from him, he was telling me he was on his way towards Pennsylvania, or Mississippi. Pennsylvania. And so he, I believe, was in Gettysburg. And so I had just heard recently, it was in the papers and such, about that huge victory in Gettysburg. My father was there. And with any luck, he's still safe and sound. But that was the most recent one I heard from him. And then my brother, he joined later in the war, so he's not been in as many battles. It doesn't seem like to me he has. So some of the ones he's been into, they were rather smaller. The Battle of Raymond, I believe, was one of them. The Battle of Jackson was one of them. I know, like I said, he's most recently in Vicksburg right now, so hopefully he's all right. There was one, it was a hill, some sort of hill. Champion Hill. It was Champion Hill. So they've been in quite a few battles, unfortunately, but they have managed to come out safely. So thank the good Lord for that. Do I know how to shoot a rifle? I've seen it plenty of times, but I have never shot one myself. I suppose I could probably pick one up. I've seen it so much, and now we have Union soldiers in town. They all have their rifles. So I know the very basics of it, and I'm sure if I picked it up, I could give it my best go. I know that they train the soldiers to be able to shoot and reload and then shoot again in, a minute or so? I don't think I could do it that quickly. In fact, I know I couldn't do it that quickly. It would take me quite a while to shoot and reload and, get that ramrod in there, but I could try. Certainly. Someone said, thank you for hosting us in your home. You're very welcome. Thank you for visiting me. Like I said, I'm awfully lonely these days. I'm a person who likes to be around other people and spend time with people, so it's been rather difficult to sort of feel like I'm on my own a bit. Of course, I have friends around town that I can visit with, but it is nice to host you all as well and to speak with you all. So, in fact, I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure the time of day, but I did promise Mr. Nichols that I would run by his dry goods store and I would help clean things up. I don't know if anyone who's still with us right now heard me mention it, but we had Confederate soldiers come raiding through our town yesterday, and things are really in shambles at the moment. And so one of the worst places that was unfortunately destroyed was our dry goods store, because of course those Confederates came in and were just stealing whatever they could off of the shelves. And unfortunately, there's only so many people that are still left in DuPont who are not, being soldiers who have to tend to their own homes. So I might need to help them with that awfully soon, actually. But I do see another question pop up. How big is your home? Well, it's all right. It's not 2 stories or anything like that. It's just a 1-story home. We have 3 bedrooms, rather small. It's nothing like the Porter's home. If you've been to DuPont and you've seen the Porter's home, I can't imagine living in a home like that. That is the finest house I've ever seen with my own eyes. It's grand. It's very beautiful, but ours is more modest. But it's one of those where it has always felt very welcoming and inviting. And growing up, my mother loved to have folks come and visit us and visit with us, and have food made for folks, and whatever else while they were visiting. That was always one of our favorite things to do. So I think that is all the time that I probably have to speak with you all, because like I said, I do need to go help Mr. Nichols. He would be rather angry with me if I decided to not help him and sit and talk to you all, because heaven knows I certainly could talk and talk and talk all day. You all have probably gathered as much from this. So thank you very, very much for visiting with me and keeping me company. I hope that you all are staying safe and sound in your respective homes or wherever you are at. I hope that these hard times don't get to you too much, and just keep in mind that we're all doing it together and we're all going to get through it together, and hopefully things will be better on the other side, right? All right, so thank you so much. You all take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.